Good morning, everyone. Lots going on today. More with coronavirus, more states of emergency, more announcements coming up. And, well, when I went to bed last night, nobody was talking about this. And now everybody is talking about this. Through the night, there were lots of tweets talking about this. And so this stuff is unfolding and changing hourly, which is very interesting to watch. Katie Simpson's tweeting, and this is 8:25 a.m. on March 18th. Today is the 18th. She says, quote, "Talks between Canada and the U.S. on border restrictions continue with both sides. Hopeful the announcement will be made today, I'm told. There's an understanding these measures will be hurtful," I think harmful is a better word, anyway, "to both countries, but there is hope it will be short-term as per source. Main conversations are happening between Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland and the State Department, as well as Public Safety and the Department of Homeland Security. I asked about the short-term consequences and was told the main focus right now for everyone is stopping the spread of the virus. This is the priority, obviously, I was told." Talks continuing this morning. And here is... And what they're talking about is closing down the border to non-essential travel. They want to keep commerce open. They want to keep food flowing. They want to keep products flowing, but they don't want tourists coming back and forth across the border, et cetera, in the way that they currently do and are, right? It looks like they're going to announce this at 1 p.m. today, which means probably 2. And there's a theory about why Trudeau was late yesterday, and it has to do with this American border crossing and the optics of announcing it jointly and having Trump take the lead instead of Canada closing the border, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a whole, and it's probably more conspiracy theory than reality, but the person on Twitter was saying they think that maybe Trudeau was late because Trump took, or the United States took umbrage with the idea of this rolling out without the optics of it being a mutual agreement, right? And I mean, okay, optics matter in politics. Optics matter. Optics are everything, right? So everybody has to be seen to be managing this well, right? And I think it would be remiss to not point out that had we stopped flights like Trump stopped flights, right? If we had created a North American barrier to landing infected people continually since we found out about this since January 22nd, I would say that would be managed better, but Justin Trudeau kept the borders open and the flights landing all the way till today. They're still landing, right? And until he changes this, and maybe they're full of Canadian citizens. The border was closed yesterday to any non-citizens, except, unless your family member, your direct family member is a citizen, and then you can be allowed admittance to Canada, which seems odd, right? Seems weird. They're telling Canadians, come home. Weird. But they're announcing this. It says... Premier Doug Ford will hold a press conference today at 1 p.m. at Queen's Park. He will be joined by the Deputy Premier and Minister of Health, Christine Elliott, and the Minister of Finance, Rod Phillips. So maybe, this might not have anything to do with the border closing. I actually thought this was originally the Deputy Prime Minister, and I think I thought that because this said Deputy Prime Minister. But anyway, this may have something to do with the border between the U.S. and Canada. It may not. I don't know. But there's more news for Ontario, more news for Canada. Justin Trudeau will be announcing something today at 10:30, I hear. There's a 680 News talking about that. And, well, here's people who will not be stopped by any closure of the borders. Globe and Mail is reporting 12 hours ago. And I wonder if they're going to change their tune on this. I don't know. Canada will not bar irregular asylum seekers over COVID-19 concerns. The Orwellian speak in our press is very concerning. By Orwellian speak, I mean these people are crossing illegally. It is illegal to cross a border at an unregistered crossing point into Canada. It's illegal to do that. It's illegal to not have a passport and cross into Canada. And so this irregular asylum seeker, bullshit. Sorry, excuse my French. Anyway, here it is. Canada's partial travel ban over COVID-19 will not stop asylum seekers from crossing into the country at unofficial entries. But Public Safety Minister Bill Blair said intercepted migrants will face additional health checks and be asked to self-isolate. Mr. Blair said border officials will continue to take asylum seekers into custody after they enter Canada illegally, as they have been, but will also start screening for symptoms of COVID-19 and ask migrants where they've been. Because, I was skiing in Italy, and then we hopped over to Switzerland, and we spent a little bit of time in South Korea, because isn't that a wonderful economy? And then we went through London and landed in Canada. Because that's what COVID-19 patients seem to do. Landed in the United States, then took a taxi to Roxham Road and crossed over. That's where we've been, the migrants. Yeah, right. Anyway, the asylum seekers who would normally be moved to temporary shelters facing facilities after being processed at the border will self-isolate for 2 weeks like every other person entering Canada. Oh, they'll just go home to their homes. Where are they going to self-isolate? In new facilities you're building? Ugh, just awful. Here is the Premier of Quebec, and he says that he wants Roxham Road closed, essentially. The Bloc Québécois demands, or here's the federal leader, Yves Blanchet. He's demanding that Roxham Road be closed. Excuse me, I said Premier. He's not the Premier. He's the leader of the Bloc in the federal cabinet. And here's Justin Trudeau. And so, I mean, this is him saying it again, right? Encore again, the closure of Roxham Road. And there's no shock here. Everybody wants this closed. It is irresponsible in the face of the pandemic, but even beyond the face of the pandemic, it is irresponsible to not enforce Canada's laws and Canada's borders. That is what a government is for. That is what an army is for. An army is not to send to other countries to enforce peace or to bring peace to them or to bring democracy to them. That is invasion, right? That is whatever the Orwellian speak that has become the public opinion in the last 20 years, the preventative wars, and I mean Reagan fought preventative wars too, right? But so this isn't new is what I'm saying. But when you say, hi, our way of doing things is better, see this gun right here? Yeah, it's a lot better, and we hope that you adopt it. That is not bringing peace to a region. That is being warlike, okay? Let other places do what they want to do, govern themselves. But use Canada's money here, right? In Canada to manage people here, not around the world. That's not what an army's for. That wasn't the original intent anyway. And a police force is so that you as an individual don't have to take the law into your own hands and become a vigilante because you know that the police and the lawyers and the legal system will take care of it. But that is breaking down, right? And so you see people taking the law into their own hands. That's what happens when it's not managed correctly, right? It's frustrating. Back to this. Here's Justin Trudeau. Canada is considering invoking the Emergencies Act to combat COVID-19. It would enable the government to seize property and public utilities, prohibit public assembly, and restrict travel. Do you think the government should take this step? I said no. I don't think that they should take this step. This is supposed to be about tools to help fight the virus and not really about restricting travel and prohibit public assembly. And I understand those are tools to prevent the virus spread. But when they become enshrined in law like this, when people get superpowers, I mean, I remember my history in World War II and emergency powers being granted to certain dictators, and it didn't end well, right? It took a whole big war to finish that one. So emergency powers, for me, I'm a little hesitant on it. So I think that we could manage, and until we can't manage, then, but who knows? Like, they declared emergency over the climate, right? And clearly, this is more of an emergency. And they're like, oh, well, we're not sure about the Emergency Powers Act. That's decisive leadership, everyone. That's me being sarcastic. Here's Bill Morneau. He's going to unveil $20 billion more. So decisive to cushion the financial shock of COVID-19. Here's Bill Morneau, Will Ferrell lookalike, and member of the McCain family, right? Like, if you've eaten French fries, his family has profited, right? Maple Leaf Foods. Okay. Finance Minister Bill Morneau is poised to announce billions in federal aid to help cushion the financial shock of the COVID-19 outbreak on Canadians. The sweeping economic package is expected to be worth $20 billion or more. It is expected to include measures to get direct payments to Canadians so they can afford to follow the advice of health professionals to stay home as much as possible to prevent the spread of infection, possibly through a temporary increase in the Canadian Child Benefit and grants to workers who don't qualify for employment insurance. The aid comes on top of the $1 billion the federal government has already committed for provincial healthcare systems, research, protective equipment, relaxed employment insurance rules, and economic stabilization. And it's on top of the $10 billion in credit support that it has been made available to businesses. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland says the government is looking to emulate what countries like Singapore have done. Singapore has devoted roughly 1% of the value of its economy on measures like wage supplements to help businesses retain workers, business tax credits, cash to innovate once consumer spending rebounds, and targeted aid for particularly hard-hit sectors like tourism and air travel. In Canada, 1% of the gross domestic product would amount to roughly $20 billion. However, some premiers have warned that at least twice that will ultimately be necessary. Canada is in a fortunate position that we have the fiscal firepower to act, and we will. Freeland said on Tuesday. And I really want to assure Canadians that the federal government will do what it takes to get us through this crisis and to ensure that Canadian workers, Canadian businesses are in a position to come roaring back when the measures imposed by social distancing can be set aside. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said the government will announce changes later this week to the imminent tax filing deadlines to give individuals and businesses more flexibility. Economic growth in Canada and around the world, already sluggish before the outbreak, has slowed to a crawl, with many economists predicting a global recession. And I mean, yeah, have you seen the traffic? It's nearly non-existent. Oh, here's that tweet from 680 News. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to speak at 10:30 a.m. to announce financial aid for Canadians through the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's probably putting some meat on these $20 billion bones. And the last story for this morning is part of this fiscal package as well is buying up mortgages, just like in 2008. So if you were around for the 2008 crash, well, here it is, right? Ottawa to buy up to $50 billion in mortgages, and the move that harkens back to the crisis of 2008. And I'm not going to go through this right now, but there's a lot of fiscal tools that were developed to prevent a big market shock or a big market crash. In 2008, a lot of people disagreed with them, including our prime minister who implemented them, right? And he said, what am I going to do? If the United States is bailing out auto companies and I don't bail out auto companies, all of the auto companies are going to leave Canada, right? It's checkmate. I have to play the same game. And so right or wrong, that's kind of where we're at. The world is moving in this direction. And there's people who are in my comments saying, like, don't you see this is used to curtail our freedoms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, I share some of those concerns with the Emergency Act being bandied about. There's potential there for this to be misused. Yes, absolutely. But I say again, shutting down the entire world economy, wow. If this is a conspiracy and this whole thing doesn't exist, and like that, there are people who just don't believe the virus is happening. They believe it's just a coordinated campaign to scare people into I don't know, burrowing into our houses and never coming out again. And the media is feeding into this, and governments are feeding into this. Like I said, I can't imagine the coordination necessary to have different governments of the world agree to crash the economy. Right? It would be like everybody in the car agreeing we're going to get into a really bad wreck. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense to me. So, I mean, maybe I'm totally off. Maybe it is. Who knows? I believe there are some conspiracies out there that are true. Like there are things out there that have happened that are just that the truth is absolutely stranger than fiction. Have you read about Ted Kennedy and the person in his trunk? Right? Like there are things that have happened in the world that have been documented clearly that are just wow, like eye-opening, right? So to think that there are no conspiracies is folly as well, but to think that the entirety of the world is like, yes, we're definitely going to crash the economy. Let's do this. I just can't see it. But I can't see everything. I'm not right 100% of the time. Who knows, right? Who knows? So everything's on the table to me. We'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. But I talk about the news. I talk about what's happening in the world, and what they are saying is true. And yeah, I mean, this is a concerning path, no matter which way you slice it, right? So I hope we find a way through this where minimal people are affected. I hope we find a way through this where people are healthy and safe and well fed. And I hope we get to Christmas 2020 and everybody is more worried about the tinsel than the virus. I hope that's where we go by the end of this year. We'll see. Fingers crossed, everyone. So thanks for watching. Check out CanadaPoly.com, check out CanadaReport.co, and have a wonderful, wonderful